The alarm went off before the sun rose, the same dull tone it had used every morning for years. She reached out with a tired hand, silenced it, and stared at the ceiling in the dim gray light. Another day, another stretch of hours she wasn't sure she had the strength to face. The weight in her chest felt familiar, part fear, part exhaustion, part quiet hope she tried not to acknowledge anymore. She sat up slowly, letting her feet find the cold floor. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. In the kitchen sink, last night's dishes waited. On the counter, unpaid bills lay in a crooked pile. On the wall, a clock ticked a little too loudly. Life felt stuck in repeat, and lately, every day felt the same. She brushed her teeth, splashed water on her face, and looked at herself in the mirror. Dark circles lived under her eyes now. The spark she once had felt dim. She whispered, almost without thinking, "God, I don't know how I'm going to do this today." The word surprised her. She hadn't prayed in a long time, not really. Not since things began to fall apart in quiet, relentless ways. She dressed in work clothes, simple and worn, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. But her hand paused on the handle. Something inside nudged her, gentle but firm. She let out a slow breath, stepped back into the small living room, and sat on the edge of the couch. The silence pressed in again, but this time she didn't rush to escape it. She closed her eyes. "God," she whispered, voice shaking, "I don't have a plan today. I don't have answers. I don't even have much faith left. But if you're really there, if you really go before me, then please go ahead of me today. I can't walk into this day alone." Her prayer wasn't elegant. It wasn't long. It was honest. And somehow, in that quiet moment, something shifted. Not around her, inside her. The fear didn't vanish. The problems didn't disappear. But a small warmth settled in her chest, steady and real. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and opened the door. Outside, the air felt different. Crisp, awake. The city moved the way it always had, but for the first time in a while, she noticed it. A man walking his dog. A woman laughing on her phone. The soft gold of early sunlight touching the tops of buildings. She walked to the bus stop, heart still heavy but no longer empty. At work, the tension greeted her the moment she stepped inside. The office had felt fragile for months. Rumors of cutbacks, whispered meetings behind closed doors, forced smiles from managers. She took her seat and logged into her computer, bracing herself for whatever this day would bring. 10 minutes later, her manager asked her to step into his office. Her stomach dropped. She followed him down the hall, each step echoing with the worst possibilities. She thought of the bills on her counter. The rent due soon. The quiet fear she carried like a second shadow. She sat in the chair across from him, hands folded tightly in her lap. He cleared his throat. "I'll be direct," he said. "We've had to make some very difficult decisions." The words hit hard, exactly as she'd expected. She felt the familiar rush of panic rise, but then something steadied her. The memory of her prayer came back to her like a hand on her shoulder. "Today will be different," she had whispered earlier. She had meant it for strength, not for escape. Her manager continued, "Your department is being restructured. Positions are changing, some are being eliminated, but," he paused, "we're offering you a different role. Higher responsibility, higher pay. It starts immediately if you accept." She blinked, not fully processing his words. "You're not letting me go." He shook his head. "No, we've watched your work closely. You're consistent. You care. We need that right now." Tears stung her eyes, sudden and sharp. She nodded, unable to speak at first. When she finally did, her voice came out soft. "Yes, I accept." When she walked back to her desk, the world felt unreal. The fear that had lived in her chest for months loosened its grip just a little. She didn't feel triumphant, just grateful. Quietly, deeply grateful. At lunchtime, she sat alone outside with her sandwich, the sun warm on her face. She didn't scroll on her phone. She didn't rush. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you." But the day wasn't finished yet. On her way home that evening, the bus broke down a few streets from her stop. Passengers groaned. Some cursed under their breath. She stepped off with the others, walking the rest of the way on foot. Halfway down the block, she saw a woman sitting on the curb with a small child beside her. The child clutched a worn stuffed bear. The woman's shoulders shook with quiet sobs. She slowed her steps, unsure whether to interfere. Then she remembered her prayer again. "Trust God before you move." The words echoed gently. She turned back. Are you okay? She asked softly. The woman looked up, eyes red. My car broke down this morning. I missed an interview. I don't even have enough money to get home. The child leaned closer to her side, eyes wide and tired. Without fully knowing why, she reached into her bag and pulled out the cash she'd planned to use for groceries. It wasn't much, but it was enough for a cab and a meal. She placed it gently in the woman's hand. It's not everything, she said, but it's something. The woman stared at the money, then at her, stunned. Why would you do this for me? She smiled through tears she didn't expect. Because I believe God sees you. They hugged briefly before parting. As she walked away, her stomach tightened at the thought of her own empty fridge. Then she remembered the promotion. The raise. The unexpected provision that had already met her before she even knew she needed it. That night, back in her apartment, the space felt warmer. The dishes were still in the sink. The bills were still on the counter. But the air no longer felt heavy. She cooked a simple meal from what she had left, ate slowly, and sat on the couch with the lights dimmed. She thought about the way the day had unfolded, how fear had tried to rule her steps, how a quiet prayer had changed her posture before the world changed its tone. She opened her hands in her lap and whispered, if you really go before me, please do it again tomorrow. Across the city, another life was shifting in a different way. He sat in the hospital hallway, hands clasped, staring at a door that had not opened for hours. Inside, his father lay unconscious, machines breathing for him. The doctor had used words like, uncertain, and critical, and prepare yourself. He had nodded, numb, then collapsed into the waiting chair as if the floor had vanished under him. He hadn't prayed since childhood. Not really, but desperation has a way of stripping pride from a man. He bowed his head, voice barely a sound. God, if you're real, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to lose him. At that same moment, miles away, she sat in her apartment whispering a similar prayer. Two strangers, two fragile hearts, one unseen presence quietly moving ahead of both. When the doctor finally came out, his face carried the weight of seriousness, but also a cautious softness. He stabilized, the doctor said. It's still serious, but he made it through the night. That's not nothing. It felt like oxygen returned to his lungs. He wept openly, not caring who saw. The days passed. For her, the new job proved overwhelming at first. Meetings, decisions, pressure she had never carried before. More than once, she felt the familiar voice of doubt rise again. You can't do this. You don't belong here. Each morning, she learned to pause before the door, just for a moment. Each morning, she said the same quiet prayer. Go before me, lead what I can't see. And slowly, she noticed a change, not just in circumstances, but in herself. She listened more. She reacted less. She chose patience when frustration would have been easier. She chose courage when fear tried to speak first. One evening, weeks later, her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She almost ignored it. Then she answered. Her breath caught when she heard the woman's voice. You helped me and my daughter on the street, the woman said. I just wanted you to know, I got another interview. I got the job. I wanted to thank you. They both cried on the phone. Across the city, the man from the hospital began attending a small church near his apartment. He didn't understand everything, but he understood gratitude. Each week, his father grew a little stronger. Each week, his own heart grew softer. Life did not become perfect for either of them. There were still setbacks, still tears, still moments where faith felt thin. But something had changed at the root. They no longer walked into their days as if they were alone at the front of the battle. One rainy morning, months later, she stood at her window watching drops slide down the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, stronger now, steadier. She picked up her phone and sent a message to a friend she hadn't spoken to in years. I don't know where you're at in life right now, she typed. But I just wanted you to know, today can be different. At that same hour, the man sat beside his father on a park bench as sunlight filtered through trees. His father's hand trembled in his. You didn't give up on me, his father said softly. He shook his head. I wasn't the one carrying us. Somewhere between the rising sun and the falling night, between whispered prayers and trembling steps forward, lives were being quietly rearranged. No thunder, no dramatic signs, just small obediences, soft courage, unseen hands going ahead into places hearts were afraid to walk. And every morning, in apartments and hospital rooms and city streets, voices continued to rise, not always strong, not always steady, but sincere. Today will be different, not because life suddenly became easy, not because problems vanished, but because they were no longer stepping into the day alone. They were learning, moment by moment, what it meant to trust God before they moved.